Every single product you use, that coffee cup in your hand, the car you drive, the chair you're sitting on, it has a hidden story. And that story starts way, way before it ever gets to a factory. It begins with a supplier. They're the unseen but absolutely essential first link in the entire chain. So, let's pull back the curtain, shall we?
Okay, so think about this. That device you might be watching this on right now, your smartphone, where does it really begin? What's its actual starting point?
Well, the answer probably isn't what you think. It's not in some shiny, high-tech assembly plant. Nope, the real journey of that phone begins in mines, in chemical plants, and in little specialized workshops all over the world. It begins with a supplier. So in this explainer, we're going to peel back the layers on this crucial, but so often invisible part of how, well, everything gets made. We're going to make the unseen seen.
Now that we know where we should be looking, let's get our terms straight. We have to start with the most fundamental question of all. What exactly is a supplier?
To put it really simply, a supplier is any business that provides the essential ingredients that another company needs to make its final product. We're talking raw materials, tiny components, or even services. They are the first and, you could argue, the most critical link in any supply chain.
And it's not just one type of supplier, right? You've got a few different flavors. You have raw material suppliers, who provide stuff like silica for your phone's screen. Then there are component suppliers, the ones making the high-tech bits like microchips and cameras. You also have wholesalers, and this is a big one, service providers, like FedEx, who literally handle the logistics of moving all these pieces around the globe.
Now, you might hear the word vendor thrown around, but there's a really key difference. A vendor relationship is usually just transactional, like buying paper for the office. A supplier, on the other hand, is a strategic, long-term partner. They're providing critical parts of your product. It is a much, much deeper relationship.
Okay, so we know what a supplier is. Now let's get into the why. Why are they arguably the most important piece of the entire manufacturing puzzle? I think this quote just says it all, doesn't it? If you don't have a solid foundation, everything you try to build on top of it is just at risk. And in the world of making things, suppliers are that foundation.
And you can see that foundation creates this massive ripple effect. The quality of what a supplier sends you directly impacts your final product's quality. How reliable they are basically dictates your own production efficiency. And the best suppliers? They can even be partners in innovation, bringing you new ideas and technologies. Their performance literally ripples through the entire company.
And get this, here's the crazy part. It only takes just one delayed component from a single supplier can bring an entire production line to a grinding halt. We're talking costly bottlenecks that can cost a company millions.
This is exactly why choosing a supplier isn't like just picking something off a shelf. It's a huge strategic decision. So how do companies even go about finding and selecting these incredibly vital partners?
Well, it's not random, that's for sure. It's actually a very methodical four-step process. First, the company has to figure out exactly what it needs. Then, they send out what's called a request for proposal, or an RFP, to potential suppliers. Next up is the really intense part, evaluating all those proposals. And finally, they negotiate and sign a formal contract.
And that evaluation stage, it is about so much more than just the price tag. Smart companies look at the total cost, which includes things like shipping. They check for quality certifications. They dig into the supplier's track record for reliability. And more, they're investigating ethical and environmental standards. The lowest price is almost never the best value. On top of all that, companies have to make this giant strategic choice. Do you go with a single supplier that can build a really strong partnership, but it's super high risk if something goes wrong? Or do you use multiple suppliers to lower that risk, even though it's way more complex to manage? It's a constant balancing act. So you see where this is all headed, right? All of this strategy, the careful selection, the balancing of risk, it all leads to the most important part of the modern supply chain, turning a simple transaction into a real long-term partnership.
Because the smartest companies out there today know the goal isn't just to buy parts anymore. The real goal is to build a massive competitive advantage by turning their most important suppliers into genuine partners.
And of course, there's a fancy business term for this whole idea, Supplier Relationship Management, or SRM. It's just the official, systematic way that companies manage these ongoing relationships to track performance, handle risks, and even innovate together. And how do they keep track of it all?
Well, it's not based on gut feelings. It's all data-driven. They use tools like this supplier scorecard to track what we call key performance indicators, or KPIs, like on-time delivery and defect rates. It gives them a crystal-clear picture of who's knocking it out of the park and who needs a little help.
And when you do all this work, the payoff is huge. A strong partnership means you're more reliable, especially when a crisis hits. It leads to incredible collaborative innovation. And it gives a company the flexibility it needs to react to sudden swings in what customers want. It's a massive, massive advantage.
So, the next time you pick up your favorite product, think for a second about that hidden story. Because this might just be the most interesting question of all. Is it possible that the most important company behind your favorite brand is one you've never even heard of?